I was, and I won't say the name, I was at a recent training, and the person was showing how many downloads they have, right? And kind of the what it took, multiple episodes and all the clips on YouTube and things like that, and then goes, but don't get discouraged. Even though you don't have a team, you could do this too. And I said, that's a lie.
Stop the cap.
Let's talk about the business side of podcasting. So I was watching this podcast, right? Okay, clearly. And shout out to Mandii, right? We covered Mandii before when she actually separated from the Joe Budden podcast, right? And she broke down the back end of podcasting, of where we think we could just jump on the mic and that's a podcast, and that's what brings in all the money and the looks and the opportunities, where not so much.
A lot of people want to show up on a mic and talk and make all the money.
Yeah, of course.
And it's just like you have to build the team, and that goes back to the percentage of the percentage of something is more than 100% of nothing. Literally feel like, ooh, their opinions matter so much. They're a star. And then literally don't realize that, okay, after you show up, who's rendering your audio? Who's making your clips? Who's doing the marketing? Do you have a deal? And if so, who's selling ads? Who's, like, the idea of even monetizing
Even how you title your videos.
Riff in business and podcasting and creative is really all the back. It's the how we busting this down. Because how we busting the money down 50-50
like
if the
way she
workload is
talk.
90-10.
So I'll say this before Moose goes into his business talk. The key part that I got out of all that is when you start a podcast, you didn't even think about having a team. You just thought maybe it was you and a co-host, or maybe 2 or 3 co-hosts, and that is it. And you find out very quickly that it has to be a team. It has to be more than you. You will get drained. This is why some podcasts actually stop, because we don't even consider all the different needs and different positions there are in creating a successful podcast. Like, and there were parts in that interview where she was like, okay, cool. Who has travel? Who's setting up the interviews? Who has, getting the hotels? Who has, conversations with, getting bios and that whole nine. So these are things that we are not considering, and that's what doesn't get talked about loud enough, right? It doesn't get talked about as far as the true work of podcasting. And we've had multiple people come on here. We've spoken ourselves about what it takes to do a podcast. But I was, and I won't say the name, I was at a recent training, and the person was showing how many downloads they have, right? And kind of the what it took, multiple episodes and all the clips on YouTube and things like that, and then goes, but don't get discouraged. Even though you don't have a team, you could do this too. And I said, that's a lie.
Stop the cap.
Like, that's a complete lie. To get thousands and thousands and thousands of downloads with multiple pieces of content everywhere, distributed everywhere, that really takes a team. And so it's almost lied to when you're saying, okay, all this, but you know what? You could do it too. No, you can't. Not without a team. You could do it once you have a team. Once you have because we have someone who does our show notes. We have somebody who edits our clips. We have somebody who distributes on TikTok. We have somebody who distributes on Instagram. We have systems that distribute on all the other ones. We have paid for education. We have we're investing on somebody who's going to be doing research, and so that could get off of our plates. Anything that takes up majority of the time, I just bought something that will allow me not to think about titles no more. Like, there's a lot of things that seem very small that add up, that if it is not taken care of or discussed about, it's, you're kind of like, wait, what? I just thought I got on the mic. Oh, I just thought I could turn on some lights, keep it moving, and I come back next week and that's what it is. There is a lot. And if I'm scaring some people from doing podcasting, I'm going to say good, because it's not meant for the weak. Right? It's not like it's really a true business within itself that you have to spend time and you have to give energy to. And if you don't, it will be left on the wayside. Those are those podcasts that get only a couple of hundred listens and things like that, and wondering, why is it not successful? Well, because you're still doing everything, or you haven't discussed on how to delegate, what it takes, what are the resources, what are the tools, right? And it's just something that I don't want to hide, as far as, it's easy, you could do it too. You could do it too if you're good at managing a team. You could do it too if you are good at building a team. You could do it too if you're really great at delegating and recognizing when you're supposed to let things go, right? That's another whole conversation, because there's some people who just want to hold on to things in order to save money and things like that. It's like, no, give it up. If you're trying to be successful, let go of the money, because it'll come back once you reinvest correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's well said, man. I mean, I think recording is just such a small portion of the operation of a podcast. So when you think about this segment here that you all are watching, that's probably the smallest portion of work that goes into the full experience, or what it takes to operate a podcast. It's a lot like professional sports. The game is a very small segment of what we see that goes into the preparation that each of those athletes have to fulfill or kind of go through so that they can perform, right? It's like, I used to think about it even when I played sports. My season might have been 3 months, but I trained for 8 months. It's so lopsided, the amount of work that goes in on the back end or behind the scenes, so that you can enjoy such a small portion of it all. So I agree. And quite honestly, that's a conversation that I had to have with Nikki, right? When I came to you and said, hey, I've been thinking about it. I don't know. Although in the beginning we were like, hey, come on, hoorah, let's do this together, 50-50 no matter what. And then it got to a point where I was like, honestly, it doesn't even make sense for this to be 50-50. There's so much more work that you have to do in editing and just everything digital, as opposed to my portion of the work, which is fulfilling whatever it is when it comes to our recording and the live show and any negotiations that may happen when it comes to some form of business deal. So it's like, when you compare that level of work, and again, that's why you hear me over the last, consistently over the last 3 to 5 episodes, I said, stop taking things personal, address your insecurities and heal, so that these types of conversations with you and your business partner or whoever your co-host may be can be very simple dialogues, and not some form of, oh my God, you're backstabbing. How could you? Why would you? It's just addressing the facts. And that's why I like what she said, right? How are we going to do 50-50 if the workload is 90-10? That's the reality. That's just a fact. And so if that is the case, you just have to be prepared to have that conversation. Now, I've always said it, the business has to be addressed up front. And because we're in a new creative world where business doesn't stay consistent for 10, 20 years, you have to talk about, well, what happens when something changes in the landscape of what we're doing? So we started a creative business. It's a creative endeavor. We agreed to these percentages based on the operational expenses and all that. Great. The metaverse comes along. That adds a whole new layer to the business of what you had previously. What happens in that situation? So I think that's another element of quote unquote business development or navigating the business realm of the creative endeavor that a lot of us are not really talking about or we're not really taught on how to do. So I think just simply put, I will say that talk about business early and often. And after you do so, because it's a creative endeavor, try to talk about what would happen in case of one or two scenarios, like an innovative, next level thing that happens or the next chapter. What happens when we enter that chapter? How will that affect what we're currently doing? I think between those two scenarios, it starts to give us a better picture of what we're getting into. And we don't just do things for the fun of it. We're like, man, podcasting. Yeah. Like, no, there's a lot that goes into it. And like you said, not to scare people, but really to educate you so that you don't start and stop and so that you don't start and fail. These are the things that you'll eventually have to figure out at some point.
Agreed. So if you think about starting a podcast or you have a podcast with a co-host, just keep in mind, keep the communication open, and then you'll be good.